What's good with y'all, man? It's your boy David. We are back with another juicy reaction video. Today, we are reacting to what happened to the 12 disciples. My nigga Jesus Christ. Not playing. Of Jesus Christ. I know, like, hearing the stories, I know most of them probably died like horrible ass deaths. I know John got beheaded. Yeah, they got beheaded. I know Peter got crucified upside down. I know one of them niggas got boiled. One of them niggas got boiled. So let's see what happened to the 12 disciples. With that being said, make sure y'all like and subscribe. We are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. And let's get to it. By Hochelaga.
The disciples of Jesus are some of the most
It's a long one, so y'all make sure y'all get y'all popcorn, bro. You feel me?
important figures in Christianity.
But look at all these white men. You can tell they're from the Middle East. Couldn't even tell. Look at all these, man, pasty white skin. They do not look like they're from a desert. No cap.
What happened to them after the Bible? It is said that they traveled across the Mediterranean and beyond, establishing the very first churches in Christian history. But then it takes a darker turn. According to legend, only one of them survived into old age. The other 11 met gruesome and horrendous fates. Their stories have been immortalized by generations of artists. In this video, let's explore the history of the 12 disciples and what happened to them after the Bible. Before we explore the 12 disciples on our list, we need to ask an important question.
What's the
what
question?
exactly is a disciple?
Man, look at this nigga, bro. Nigga, this is supposed to be Jesus? Is this supposed to be Jesus, nigga? Nigga, that's Jared Leto. The fuck? Goddamn, boy, that nigga pasty as shit.
Throughout the New Testament Gospels, the Bible lists 12 men who accompanied Jesus during his 3-year ministry. Today, we know them simply as the disciples, a word that comes from the Latin discipulus, meaning student. But in reality, these men were not simply there to learn. They lived and ate alongside their master, and many were given positions of authority. Perhaps a better way to view them is as apprentices, which is closer in meaning to the original Greek term, mathetes. So what do we actually know about these disciples after Jesus? Well, not much. With the exception of the Acts of the Apostles, the Bible tells us very little about what happened next, although it's widely believed that the disciples traveled across the Mediterranean and beyond, and founded some of the earliest Christian churches in the world. In the centuries that followed, rumors began to spread of the disciples' various adventures. Curiously, however, it seems that the disciples' stories
They just all like all these niggas just got crucified upside down, beheaded, stabbed, crucified, boiled alive. Man, these niggas ain't got no magic powers. They was getting fucking clapped. And what happened to this nigga? What was he doing? Did they skin, bro? They must have skinned, bro. What the hell? This is crazy, bro.
ended in tragedy. With the sole exception of one of them, they are all said to have met disturbing and gruesome ends. And with that cheery note, let's begin our journey into the disciples.
Just to get it.
Peter.
Let's get it.
Of all the
Big P! Nigga took no shit. I remember one time in the Bible, he had I think, what'd he say? He denied Jesus a couple times, bro. Cause he like, it was weird. It was like a paradox. It was weird.
disciples, Peter is considered to be one of, if not the most important of the 12. In fact, he may be one of the most important figures in Christianity and was a key part in transforming a fringe Jewish sect into the religion we know today. He has to be one of the most studied figures in history. But what do we really know about him? Who was the real Saint Peter? Well, let's start with the name and how it wasn't actually Peter.
Of course it wasn't fucking Peter, nigga. Come on now, bro. Be so for real. Of course it wasn't fucking Peter, man. Come on. This book old as shit. You thought that nigga's name was really Peter? Are you crazy? Be for real.
Originally, he was known as Simon. According to the Gospels, he worked
I didn't know his name was Simon. What the fuck?
as a fisherman on the Sea of Galilee with his brother Andrew, and in these stories, he was approached by Jesus to follow him, and famously called to become a, quote, fisher of men. From there, Simon appears to have emerged as a leader among the disciples, and always is placed first among them. Over time, he comes to recognize Jesus as the promised Jewish Messiah, and so Jesus gives him the name Petros, the Greek word for rock, from which we actually...
So Peter means rock. He basically said, Peter, you a solid nigga, I'm gonna name you the Rock. Peter the Rock, nigga. Solid ass nigga. Yeah.
get the name Peter. It leads to one of the most famous lines in the Bible, when Jesus says, quote, "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church." For the language nerds out there, it's a bit of a pun, and probably funnier in the original Greek. This line is often seen as establishing Peter's authority for generations of Christians to come. Historically speaking, Jesus and his disciples likely spoke Aramaic, and so Peter was likely called Kephas, which is the Aramaic word for rock. Interestingly, the name Kephas is referenced to in the writings of Paul, some of the earliest New Testament documents. This independent mention suggests that Peter was likely a real historical figure and active in the early Christian church. Despite his leadership status among the 12 disciples, Peter is not without his
Damn, so my nigga might be non-fictional. Okay, that's crazy.
flaws. According to the Gospels, he was prone to outbursts, like the time he sliced off the ear of a soldier during the arrest of Jesus. Later in the tale, Peter fails Jesus in his hour of need, when he denies knowing him
Exactly, that's what I was talking about. He denied that nigga 3 whole times. Back to back to back. I don't know him. I don't know him. Man, fuck you, I don't know him. Oh, broke my heart. Shit, broke my heart when I read that. I was like, fuck. I think I watched it. I think I read it and I watched it. I was like, fuck. Shout out my nigga Peter, though.
times during his trial, an act heralded by the crowing of a rooster. Yet, despite his various misgivings, Peter is one of the first disciples to witness.
And Peter was also a ginger and white as well. Don't forget that. Look at this image. That's Peter right there. Don't forget. With pink nipples. Don't forget.
Jesus' return and is later forgiven and
Oh, is that Jesus? Oh no, I don't fucking know, bro. These niggas, they all look white as fuck to me, man. I don't even know. And these niggas, this the same 2 niggas. Bro, when I tell you medieval art is actually the trashiest fucking art I've ever fucking seen, them niggas could not paint or draw for shit, bro. Like, this is the best. This is probably the best they got. This is fucking ugly. Feel me? Like,
stated by his master. After Jesus' departure, Peter emerged
you can tell these niggas was damn near like on the brink of the end of civilization. Like, it's crazy.
as the leader of the first Christian community, which is centered in Jerusalem. But the followers of Jesus still had their enemies, and soon Peter is captured and imprisoned by King Herod Agrippa. Fortunately, his jail time does not last long, as an angel breaks in and sets him free. From there, it appeared that Peter traveled north to the city of Antioch and established another church. But it is while he is there when he encounters a new problem entirely. According to the Acts of the Apostles, Peter meets the Roman centurion Cornelius, who wants to be baptized. This presents a problem. Under Jewish law, all members of God's covenant had to be circumcised, a requirement.
And Cornelius got that thing hanging on him. He got that foreskin. He got that foreskin. We can't baptize a nigga with the foreskin. He's unclean. Oh shit. He dirty.
Since the days of Abraham. But did this apply to Cornelius, a non-Jew? Peter sets aside the Jewish law and chooses to baptize him anyway.
Yeah, you baptize that nigga with his dirty ass dick. Shout out to you, Peter. God damn. This is a joke, by the way. I don't know. I don't think people who are uncircumcised are dirty. I'm just saying this because, like, you know, like in the Bible, if you're uncircumcised, Jewish people were always circumcised in the Bible. You catch my gist.
While this decision sparked controversy for some, it also marked a subtle turning point.
I like how he said that word too, controversy. It's usually controversy because he's British and they do shit their way. It's controversy or whatever the fuck he just said.
in Christian history. Was this movement part of the wider Jewish faith, or was it something else entirely? At this point, what happens later in Peter's life is less well known, although, according to the next generation of Christian writers, Peter spent his final days in one city, the capital of the empire, Rome. By the 1st century AD,
He traveled a long ass way. Oh my god. That's crazy.
Rome
I like this rendition of Rome right here. This is really cool looking. I'm not gonna lie. I like this a lot. It's really beautiful.
was a vast metropolis with around 1 million inhabitants. It was the home to soldiers, senators, and emperors, as well as thousands of poor and enslaved people. And it was here, among those disenfranchised masses, where Christianity began to spread rapidly. A distinct Christian population began to grow in the city, and its increasing presence began to worry the Roman elites. The historian Tacitus records that Christians in the city were loathed for their, quote, hatred of the human race, and that sporadic violence against them was often welcomed. This came to a head in July of 64 AD, when
Just that random ass fan art in the middle. No, don't tell me that's actually a real drawing from back then. That's crazy, bro. That shit wild.
Rome was severely damaged by a fire. The Emperor Nero hastily blamed the Christians and ordered for their widespread persecution. And, if the rumors are to be believed, one of the victims was the Apostle Peter. According to the early histories, the saint had presided as the city's first Christian bishop. Now a man in his 60s, his years of running had finally caught up with him. After the Great Fire of Rome, Nero's soldiers captured him. For his alleged crimes, Peter was crucified upside down.
Damn!
It's a scene captured in one of art history's most iconic paintings, The Crucifixion of St. Peter by Caravaggio, where men are preparing the saint's cross. The aged St. Peter seemed...
I'm pretty sure he wanted to be crucified upside down because he didn't want to be crucified like Jesus, because he glazed. He basically was like, Jesus is that guy. I can't die like him. Put my shit upside down. And yeah.
composed and ready to accept his fate. These stories have existed since around the 2nd century, and it was during this time that a small church was established at the rumoured place of the saint's death. This church became a Christian centre, and its influence spread across the Mediterranean. Rome's powerful line of bishops began to be called Papa or Pope, and could trace their line of succession back to Peter, the rock of the church. Today, the great symbol of the Catholic Church is St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican City, and it is here, buried beneath the marbled floor of this holy site, that the relics of this Christian saint are rumoured to be buried. During the life of St. Peter, we can see how a small Jewish sect grew into a network of churches across the Mediterranean, laying the foundations of the global religion it is today. St. Peter today is seen as the greatest disciple, and certainly Jesus' closest follower. This stands in contrast to this next figure, Judas.
Damn. Dun dun dun. The betrayer, the snake, the serpent, nigga. The backstabber, the deceiver, the denier. For $30? 30 shekels? He sold out his nigga for 30 shekels. Let's learn about him.
Judas Iscariot is by
And he's a ginger. Crazy, I know.
far the most infamous disciple on this list. He was the man who betrayed Jesus, famously handing him over for 30 pieces of silver. He remains the most controversial figure in all of Christianity. But who was Judas? And why did he betray Jesus? The disciple Judas appears in the original list of the 12 disciples. He is often known by his full name, Judas Iscariot. Iscariot is a rather strange surname and is actually thought to be a Greek mistranslation of the Aramaic phrase Ish Kerioth, or the man from Kerioth, which is a town in southern Judea. If so, Judas would have been an outsider in the group, being the only disciple who was not originally from Galilee. Initially, Judas seems to play a minor role among the disciples, but does feature in one rather telling incident. In John's Gospel, Judas complains when Jesus has his feet washed with expensive perfume and argues that the money would be better spent on the poor. While it may seem like a good point, the Bible adds that Judas's concern is not about those in need. Instead, he wanted to take the money
He wanted to pocket the bread. He talking about bullshit, man. Nigga snake, for real.
himself. But if Judas was so untrustworthy, why was he even one of the 12 disciples? It's a mystery in the original story, but there are a few passages that seems to suggest that Jesus already knew his fate and somehow understood that Judas was to play a role. In fact, Jesus seems to already know when Judas betrayed him, most famously at the Last Supper, when he outs Judas as a traitor, saying, quote, "What you are about to do, do so quickly." And with that, Judas slinks away to receive his payment from the chief priests and elders. Curiously, the Bible offers two different motivations for why Judas chose to betray Jesus. In Matthew and Mark's Gospel, it's rather simple. Judas is
It just seemed like it was money to me, honestly. The way it seemed, he just like, fuck it, bread, sell my nigga out for some money. I don't even fuck this nigga for get this money, live my life. And that's about it for real, honestly.
motivated by greed. But in Luke and John's Gospel, Judas is under the possession of Satan himself. Whatever Judas's motivation truly was, while Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane, a group of soldiers ambush him. They are led by Judas, who identifies him with a kiss, an act forever immortalized by another of Caravaggio's haunting masterpieces. According to Matthew's Gospel, Judas was overcome with remorse and even tried to give back the blood money. Rejected and filled with guilt, Judas went off to a nearby field and ended things. Today, this field is known as Akeldama, or the Field of Blood. For centuries, Judas has been seen as an irredeemable figure of evil, a corrupted man who betrayed the Son of God for 30 pieces of silver. In Christian mythology, Judas famously appears in Dante's Inferno, where he resides in the ninth circle of hell. There he remains in a great icy chasm, being chewed in the mouth of Satan for eternity. And while this is the most common view of Judas, there are other texts out there that paint a very different picture.
I want to hear about these other texts, man. How they gonna redeem the irredeemable right here? Let's see what they gotta say.
One of these is the Gospel of Judas, a late Christian text discovered in Egypt that seems to depict Judas as Jesus's favorite disciple, who is told to betray him in order to fulfill a cosmic plan. It's a really fascinating text.
So it's like he basically, so they probably had a secret meeting. He was like, Judas, listen. Oh. He was probably like, Judas, listen. You gotta end me. You feel me? It's a part of the destiny. It's a part of the plan. You gotta finish me, my guy. And yeah, that's probably what happened.
And if you want to learn more, I made a full audiobook of this gospel on my Patreon. So that's the story of Judas. Malevolent or misunderstood? I'll let you decide. Thomas. Of all the 12 disciples, I think that Thomas is the most underrated, especially as he may have travelled further than any.
I don't know if I give a fuck about a nigga named Thomas, bro. I don't know, man. What did Thomas do? Why is Thomas special? Thomas don't even sound. The name Thomas don't even sound special. What does Thomas do?
Other person on this list. While Thomas remained a loyal disciple throughout Jesus' ministry, the untimely death of his leader would have undoubtedly a major impact. And when reports came that Jesus had somehow returned, Thomas
he didn't believe it. He's the one that didn't believe. He was like, man, y'all niggas lying. He ain't come back. He gone. That sound right?
Remained unconvinced. Despite eyewitness testimony from Peter, Thomas declared that the only way he would believe such a thing was if he could actually see Jesus face to face and touch the very.
He's so goddamn, like, man. You know, a lot of niggas probably asked for the same shit Thomas asked, and Thomas was the only nigga to get that. I know a lot of niggas was suffering talking about some Jesus, show yourself right now. Not a peep, nigga. Just empty air. Shit crazy.
Wounds of the crucifixion. While doubting Thomas is now a byword for somebody who is overly skeptical, the art of necromancy is not something that happens every day. Then again, unless you were a disciple and witnessed the resurrection of Lazarus firsthand, then it's every other day. Anyway, a week goes by, and Jesus returns to the disciples, proving to Thomas that he has indeed risen from the dead. Once again, it is Caravaggio's painting, The Incredulity of St. Thomas, that captures this
Look at him just sticking his finger in that nigga wound, bruh. The fuck? Creepy ass boy. I mean, but shit, I respect it though. Look at my nigga face. He like, there's no goddamn way. Like, you got stabbed. What the hell? Like, okay.
best. Jesus guides Thomas's hand gently into his wound to touch the mark left by the spear. It is at this point that Thomas confesses his faith. After this story in John's Gospel, Thomas fades away from the narrative, and the disciple is not mentioned again in the New Testament. But in the years to come, stories of where he went next would begin to emerge. And if they are to be believed, he went further than any other disciple. You see, in the southern Indian state of Kerala, you will find the St. Thomas Christians, an ancient church that claims to trace its lineage back to the disciple himself. According to local legends, Thomas left the Holy Land.
That nigga went from Judea to fucking India. What the hell? That boy traveled. Oh my god.
And sailed down along the spice routes of the Indian Ocean. Landing on the tropical Malabar coast, he preached to the local Hindu Brahmins and even gained some local converts. Of course, it would not take long for this strange visitor to attract unwanted attention. While preaching, he was set upon by a clan of warriors, one of whom ran a spear through his side. In the
Damn, shock 3 years was not playing. They heard that shit, they said fuck that. And for those who don't know, shock 3 years are basically it's a Hindu caste. Basically, it's like they're one level below Brahmin and one level above the Mudhavas or some shit. Yeah, they're basically like kings and soldiers, basically.
very same place as his former master. His relics were then said to be preserved by locals, his holy shrine becoming a site of pilgrimage. Today, these remains are said to be housed in St. Thomas's Cathedral in Chennai, India, which was first built by Portuguese explorers over the site of the original tomb. Even the spear that supposedly killed him is on display. From doubting disciple.
Man, that shit probably like a fucking SSR rank item. Like you just use that shit and it's like you can, it's like the Holy Grail. You can grant a wish with that motherfucker or something. I don't know, man.
To one of Jesus's most dedicated apostles. The legends of St. Thomas's travels are actually attested by early Christian histories. While this trip to India might seem far-fetched, these spice routes were well known in the Roman period, and the St. Thomas Christians are indeed an ancient church, one that still thrives to this day. Andrew, Scotland. The home of Robert Burns, Scotch whisky, and the Highland Games. You may recognise its national flag, the Saltire, but once I've explained how it relates to St. Andrew, you might not look at it in the same way ever again. But let's start, as we have done, with the story in the Bible. According to the Synoptic Gospels, Andrew was originally a fisherman and was called to follow Jesus by the Sea of Galilee. This association has stuck with him in Christian art, where he is often depicted as carrying a large net. Throughout the New Testament, St. Andrew is one of the
Nigga just stay catching something, man. Catching a fish, catching a play. Man, Andrew stay locked in, bro. Tap in.
most important of the 12 disciples, and one of the few to witness Jesus' strangest discourse, which outlines the various signs of the apocalypse. Atop the Mount of Olives, Jesus tells Andrew and the others that one day, corrupt prophets will emerge and falsely claim to be the Messiah. Soon, violence will erupt all over the earth, leading to the persecution of Christians and the apostasy of many others. The Discourse on the Mount of Olives is one of the most interesting sections of the Gospels, especially for biblical historians. Many Many believe that it reflects a genuine strand of Jesus' original teachings and possibly reveals the apocalyptic anxieties of the early Christian communities. Like many on this list, the New Testament texts don't say anything.
Hello? Oh my goodness. Hello? Watch what? Yes. Bye-bye. My God.
Anything about the fate of Andrew. It was left to early Christian scholars and thinkers to fill in the gaps based on rumours that they had heard. According to early histories, Andrew left the Holy Land for a region called Scythia, which loosely refers to the steppes to the north of the Black Sea. Later medieval writers considered Andrew as an early apostle to the Slavs, who apparently foretold that the city of Kiev would become a cradle of Orthodox Christianity. After his travels in Scythia, Andrew returned south to set up a church in the Greek city of Patras. But in the year 60 AD, Andrew was captured by guards and sentenced to be crucified, but this time on a cross.
For what? What the fuck? Just cuz? Fuck it. We seen bro, he's Christian, kill him. Like, just that's it? God damn.
In the shape of an X. After his excruciating death, Andrew's holy relics were sent to various churches, and it's long been rumoured that some of them were taken to Scotland. Although the veracity of these claims is debated, in the centuries to come, a small monastic community developed in the coastal region of Fife. Today, that site is the University of St Andrews, one of the oldest universities in Europe. At its centre stands the ruins of a once great cathedral, which allegedly housed the remains of this Christian saint. Although, during the Protestant Reformation, the building was destroyed. Due to his connection...
Yeah, I was gonna say, that fucking building is toast. That shit gone, nigga. I don't even know what the fuck was in there, but it's gone.
to Scotland, St Andrew has long been seen as the patron saint of the country, and the national flag, the saltire, bears homage to his rather brutal execution method.
But could you imagine dying in a brutal ass way, and you see the way you died on and you come back to life, you see the way you died on someone's fucking flag? Like, nigga, I'll be hurt. I'll feel so disrespected, bruh.
The St Andrew's Cross was later used to form part of the Union flag of the United Kingdom. Shame we still can't fit in the Welsh dragon, though. John. The problem with being called John is that everyone is called John. From John the Baptist to John of Patmos, the Bible is full of Johns. And so we get to this...
I was just finna say, John the Baptist was not one of Jesus' disciples. What the fuck? Who is this nigga?
disciple, known as John the Evangelist, one of Jesus' closest followers. Traditionally, he is linked to the Gospel of John, where he is often identified as the mysterious author, known simply as the disciple whom Jesus loved.
Hey, at the end though, you gotta tell us what happened to my nigga John the Baptist though. I gotta know. He was out eating locusts and honey and shit. What happened to that crazy ass motherfucker, man?
Seeing as John's Gospel was written between 90 AD to 100 AD, he must have been very old when it was written, if indeed the author was the same figure. That's why, in Christian art, John is easily recognizable as being the youngest of the group. After the events in the Bible, John is said to have traveled across the eastern Mediterranean, and according to the apocryphal Acts of...
Man, bro, who is this vampire-looking ass nigga, bro? What the fuck? Nigga, gray. Like Dracula.
John, this apostle was even said to perform miracles, like the time he raised a woman from the dead. Although this text was deemed heretical, illustrations of this apocryphal story somehow made it into medieval Christian art. But there's one other reason why John is so significant on this list. You see, he was the only one that didn't die a horrendous death. After his travels, John is believed to have settled in Ephesus, where he established a Christian school and died peacefully of natural causes in 98 AD. His relics were stored in a great basilica whose ruins you can still visit To this day, the city of Ephesus became an important center of Christian learning. One of its most famous theologians was Irenaeus of Lyon, a fierce opponent of the Gnostic Gospels, whom we met in my video on the subject. Irenaeus was taught by a man called Polycarp, who had himself, allegedly, been taught by the Apostle John. As a result, Irenaeus was seen as an important Christian leader. After all, he had an education unlike any of his time. In any case, the original disciple John was the last surviving member of Jesus' original ministry, having outlived the other 11 disciples. James the Greater. Like his brother John, there are several people also called James in the New Testament, including another disciple on this very list. But this James is nicknamed James the Greater, and he certainly earns his reputation. According to the Gospels, James was a close disciple of Jesus, but had a reputation for being a firebrand. In one story, James and John visit a Samaritan village that is not overly welcoming. Insulted, James asks Jesus, "Lord, do you want us to call fire down from heaven to destroy them?" Naturally, Jesus declines this request. Due to his eager, perhaps impulsive personality, Jesus calls James and his brother Boanerges, a very curious word that doesn't have a direct meaning. Many scholars believe it could be a corrupted translation of the Aramaic word B'nai Regaz, meaning sons of thunder. Aside from this story, James is also one of the
Hey, shout out to the scholars who came to that conclusion. That was a very well-rounded and well-sounded conclusion. I can't even lie. Cause that nigga, he got a temper. What the fuck you mean call down lightning and thunder? Y'all just chilling in the village one day in ancient Judea, and this random fucking balding dude just decides to call down fire from the sky to kill you because y'all are a little mean to them. Man, y'all should have called down fire when they killed y'all nigga, but y'all didn't do that. But you gonna call down fire on these regular people? Get the fuck out of here, bro.
Disciples whose death is recorded in the Bible. In the Acts of the Apostles, we learn that he is executed by King Herod's soldiers, and so sadly holds the record for being the first of the disciples to be martyred. Although he suffered a rather early demise, James packed quite a lot into his life. You see, there are many apocryphal stories that are written about him, especially from Spain. According to medieval Spanish chroniclers, St. James briefly travelled to the west before he was martyred. He arrived at the Roman province of Hispania, and according to one famous story, he witnessed a vision of the Virgin Mary standing upon a pillar, who requested that he build the church in her honour. While the apparition disappeared, the holy pillar stayed behind and still resides in the Cathedral Basilica of Our Lady of the Pillar at Zaragoza. Shortly afterward, he returned to Jerusalem to be martyred, but those faithful to him brought James's relics back to...
He said he returned to be martyred like that was a part of the job or something, you know? Like, if you're a disciple, you gotta die horrifically, or else you're not a disciple. You're not a disciple. John! Nigga just died in his sleep. Yo, puss ass. Get the fuck out of here, man. You ain't a real disciple, nigga. You ain't go out like a real nigga, man. You just died in your sleep. Nigga went to sleep, stop breathing. You weak, nigga.
Spain, and apparently hid them in the northwestern region of Galicia. Today, it is the site of a great cathedral, Santiago de Compostela, one of the most important pilgrimage sites in all of Europe. Every year, thousands of visitors come to pray at the tomb of the apostle, as they have done for centuries. As the patron saint of Spain, St. James, or Santiago, features heavily in the myths of the nation. During the medieval era, St. James was the symbol of the Spanish people, especially during the Reconquista, when Muslim rulers were driven out of the peninsula. In fact, during one battle, St. James was said to have miraculously appeared, riding atop a white horse, and came to the aid of the Spanish Christians. This image of St. James as a...
Because of course he did. Yes, of course he appeared from the dead and fought with the Spanish against the Muslims. Of course he did. For real. Just like every time I'm losing in Marvel Rivals, the spirit of fucking Stan Lee grabs my mouse and fucking helps me aim to kill Spider-Man, the nigga he made. I swear. Believe me.
crusader, later became a symbol used in the Spanish conquest of the Americas. Church artworks found in Peru often depict him as a conquistador, trampling indigenous warriors beneath his horse. Of course, it's a complicated legacy, but I suppose it's rather fitting for an apostle called the Son of Thunder.
Man, they use that nigga for colonial purposes. That's funny.
Philip. Philip is one of those disciples who is often overlooked, but he has a fascinating history nonetheless. Although he is a minor figure in the Gospels, Philip's real moment of fame comes during the story of the feeding of the 5,000, one of the only miracles recorded in all 4 Gospels. According to the legend, Jesus sees a great crowd coming towards him. He decides to test Philip and innocently asks him where to buy all the bread for these hungry people. Those familiar with this story know that Jesus had a plan all along. Other than that, Philip doesn't really get a mention, although there is one interesting theory surrounding him, and that's to do with his name. You see, the name Philip is not one you'd expect from an Aramaic laborer. Instead, it's a Greek name, and so many believe that he probably was bilingual. This would explain why, in some stories, Philip is often seen as an apostle to the local Greeks in the area. After the events of the Gospels, the apostle Philip
I just want to know how bro died.
fades into the background, but many early apocryphal sources describe what happened to him afterwards, like the so-called Acts of Philip, which explore Philip's preaching activity across the various colonies of the Mediterranean. Others say he authored the controversial Gospel of Philip, a much later Gnostic text that outlined some of the core beliefs of this breakaway Christian sect. Banned biblical books aside, many histories conclude Philip's story in the city of Hierapolis, in modern-day Turkey. In the year 80 AD, a local Roman governor ordered Philip to be strung up and crucified. Despite this gruesome punishment, it is said that Philip continued to preach while hanging there, and even managed to gain some new converts in his final moments. In the centuries that
I ain't gonna lie, if that's real, that's crazy. This nigga basically on death row, dying, still preaching. That's crazy.
followed, the ancient city of Hierapolis became a site of pilgrimage, and archaeologists have long tried to find the remains of this Christian saint. One breakthrough came in 2011, when a mysterious tomb was discovered with inscriptions linked to this disciple. What's more, they discovered several 6th century bread stamps that appeared to show the disciple Philip, an homage to his role during the feeding of the 5,000. And in the background, you can see the same image of his tomb. Bartholomew. In the Duomo of Milan, you will find a sculpture of Saint Bartholomew. On the surface, it seems rather pleasant. A tall, muscular man draped in a long...
Is he really tall and muscular? This nigga look like Voldemort. Oh no, man, he look emaciated. Fuck. He like ain't eating a minute. The hell going on?
flowing robe. But when you look closer, you'll realize that he's a little too muscular, and that his robe is a little too skin-like. Now, if you've watched a previous...
But they skinned this nigga, bruh. Oh my god.
video of mine, perhaps you know what happened to this saint already. If you haven't, well, be warned. This disciple has the worst fate of them all. But first, the issue of this disciple's name. He is often called Bartholomew, which is a Greek form of Bar Tolmai, Aramaic for son of Tolmai. But in the Gospel of John, he is known as Nathaniel. Perhaps then, his real name was Nathaniel.
Nathaniel, son of Tolmai.
Bar Tolmai, whatever he was called. This disciple does not feature too prominently in the Gospels, but there was an upside of this. It gave early Christians plenty of room to create one of the most gruesome legends in all of Christian history. According to the historian Eusebius of...
He probably, if he existed, he probably didn't even die like that, but it just said, fuck it. We'll make it see, we'll skin him alive for the fanfic.
Caesarea, Bartholomew travelled to the lands of Armenia. While he was there, he converted the pagan king Polemius to Christianity. However, not everyone in the royal family was so keen to convert. This act enraged the king's brother, who ordered Bartholomew's torture and execution. The punishment? Bartholomew was flayed, meaning that his skin was removed from his body. This has led to some of the most horrendous pieces of Christian art I have.
Oh my god! Oh my god! This looks fucking ridiculous. Is this even how that would work? This is crazy. He probably died halfway through this, bro.
Ever seen, many of them depicting the saint carrying his own skin, as if draped in a loose sheet of clothing. These stories
This is like a horror movie. God damn, it's kind of cool though. I ain't gonna lie.
inspired this statue, sculpted by Marco de Agrate in 1562. Despite its ghoulish appearance, it is genuinely one of the greatest sculptures of
It does look fire though. The muscle striations look crazy.
its time, with carved musculature and intricate anatomical detail. Although Bartholomew seemed to have met a horrendous death, his suffering was not in vain. In the years
He gave us some fire ass art. Shout out to you, my nigga.
after this apostle, Christianity maintained a foothold in Armenia. In fact, in the year 301, the kingdom officially adopted Christianity as the state religion, and in doing so, became the first Christian nation in history. No wonder why Bartholomew is the patron saint of the Armenian church. Oh, that and leatherworkers. Who says Christians don't have a sense of humour? Matthew. When the Roman Empire annexed the province
That shit dark, nigga.
of Judea, they extracted harsh taxation from the population and even hired local people to do their dirty work. That's where we meet Levi, a tax collector who was almost universally disliked. Except, of course, for Jesus, who curiously calls him to be one of the disciples. It's a scene that appears in another of Caravaggio's paintings, The Calling of St. Matthew. In a darkened room lit by a beam of light, we see a finely dressed man surrounded by fellow tax collectors. He appears to be pointing at himself in confusion, and that's when you notice the figure of Jesus in the corner, partially obscured by shadow. Despite his disreputable origins, Levi proves himself to be a loyal follower and is renamed Matthew, a name that means gift of God in Hebrew. Sadly, little else is said about Matthew in the biblical story, but according to later histories, he traveled south to the African kingdom of Ethiopia. This land already had strong links to the ancient Jewish religion, with kings that would later trace their lineage back to King Solomon. While in Ethiopia, Matthew preached the gospel and
Yeah, that's probably because of Queen Sheba, huh? Okay. This is interesting.
even converted the king's daughter, Iphigenia, similar to the story of Bartholomew.
And he got fucking killed for that shit. That's crazy.
This act enraged the king's brother, who ordered the death of the apostle while he was praying at an altar. Today, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church is considered to be one of the oldest Christian churches in existence, and even has its own biblical canon, which includes the apocryphal book of Enoch. In any case, the former tax collector Matthew is regarded as an apostle of this nation. Now, St. Matthew has another claim to fame: the Gospel of Matthew, one of the most important Christian texts in the Bible. Traditionally, it's believed that it was written by the disciple Matthew himself, who collected Jesus' sayings into one document. Nowadays, however, biblical scholars are a little more skeptical. Instead, it's believed that this text was written by an anonymous author around the year
I feel like a lot of these texts that are in the Bible were written by anonymous authors, honestly. I can't even lie. Or anonymous authors.
80 AD. Although this gospel has some original material, it reworks parts of the Gospel of Mark and possibly another text known as the Q source, whose material also appears in the Gospel of Luke. This is all to say that the Gospel of Matthew was likely written by the second or third generations of Christians, those who did not know Jesus in person but had heard eyewitness accounts. It seems that in the following decades, the disciple Matthew
So the information will be like a lot more diluted because like it's a game of telephone. Oh, he saw this and then you saw that and then he heard this and then you heard that. Like, okay, bro.
whose name
Shit's all hearsay. Is it even real?
was attached to this document. James the Lesser. Alright, I have a challenge for you. I suspect many watching this video are going to forget about this upcoming disciple, but I want you to remember him. But it's going to be hard. You see, this disciple is sadly a little forgettable. James, son of Alphaeus, is the second James among the disciples, and unfortunately, we don't know much about him. He only features in the lists of the 12 apostles, and nowhere else. And whenever Christian writers do talk about him, it's usually only to differentiate him from James the Greater. They'll often give him diminutive titles, like James the Minor, James the Lesser, or Little Saint James.
James the Lesser, James the Minor, James -1, like, you know, shit like that.
Despite his
Le James,
relative obscurity,
Baby James, the unimportant James, like, you know, shit like that.
as a disciple, at least early Christian artists didn't forget to give him a gruesome death. Whenever the saint appears, he is often shown carrying a large club, the symbol of his martyrdom. Wait, who are we talking about again? Okay, moving on. Jude Thaddeus.
Damn, bro, how did he die? What the fuck? He don't matter? Oh, fuck it, whatever, man.
When it comes to biblical names, it's safe to say that certain ones are a little tarnished. Such is the case with Jude, not to be confused with
This scary ass painting. What the fuck, bro?
his counterpart, Judas Iscariot. As a result, this loyal disciple is sometimes referred to with another name, Thaddeus. Unfortunately, Jude Thaddeus does not feature prominently in the Gospels, if at all, but he may have a role elsewhere in the New Testament. You see, towards the end of the Bible, there is a very short letter known as the Epistle of Jude. It contains a warning that the Christian community is under threat. There are imposters in the church, those who claim to be moral but instead seek only to enrich themselves. The author then proceeds to quote biblical characters who demonstrated their faith. Curiously, one of the quotes he uses is from the Book of Enoch, that apocryphal writing which was banned from mainstream biblical canons. Of course, as with many on this list, there is a debate over whether Jude actually wrote this. After the events in the Gospels, Jude was said to travel around Western Asia. Many of these stories take him to Armenia, where he met with the disciple Bartholomew, and as we've seen, it was a pretty doomed mission. So, no wonder that Jude is the patron saint of lost causes. While Jude was martyred in Armenia, the Christian community survived. In fact, the monastery of St. Jude Thaddeus stands to this day. The original building dates to the 3rd century, one of the oldest churches in existence.
Damn, that's crazy. That should
Simon
still
the
stand.
Zealot. We now arrive at the final disciple on this list. This figure is often depicted carrying a large saw. By this point in the video, I'm sure you can guess why.
What they do to bro? Did they split him in half with the saw or some shit? Like what happened to bro?
Anyway, Simon the Zealot is a rather curious figure among the disciples, and the word zealot is one of those biblical terms that has made it into English. But in its original context, the Zealots were a radical and violent political movement. As the Roman Empire governed Judea, the Zealots rose up and fought for the freedom of the Jewish people. Although little is known about Simon the Zealot, it's striking that a man with such revolutionary politics would be associated with Jesus. After all, while he was viewed as the Jewish Messiah and a descendant of King David, Jesus' message is generally one of peace. Perhaps then, Simon understood that the so-called King of the Jews was more interested in a different kind of kingdom. In the centuries that followed, Christian...
What you trying to say? He was going... That's a very interesting sentence right there. I can't lie.
Legends recount that Simon the Zealot travelled to Persia to spread the faith, and that's where this saw comes in. According to the apocryphal book, The Passion of Simon and Jude, the disciple was sawn in half by the locals. Although Simon seems to have renounced his violent ways, the Zealots would continue to fight against their oppressors, and the region erupted into all-out conflict. During the Jewish wars, the Romans destroyed the city of Jerusalem, as well as the sacred temple. It would be an event that would dramatically change the fate of Christianity forever, as many fled their homeland to establish churches across the Mediterranean. Across primary schools in England, there's a popular nursery rhyme to remember the 6 wives of Henry VIII, and it goes like this: divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived. Now, I think the 12 disciples could do with such a handy rhyme, but I'm still trying to think of what goes with flayed alive by Armenians. I think it's fair to say that being a disciple of Jesus is a job with one of the highest mortality rates out there. Except, of course, if your name is John, the only disciple said to have been spared a brutal death. For the remaining 11, however, being a disciple often ended pretty badly. But maybe you're wondering at this point, why did the disciples all seem to suffer such excruciating fates? Well, there's actually a real
This is a good question. Everybody got fucking clapped. Except for John. Everybody. Like, why? That's crazy.
Historical reason for this, and it's here we turn to next. Throughout this video, you will have seen the various artworks of these disciples, often in their final moments. But despite their suffering, their facial expression is usually one of serene calm. And there is a reason for this. Since early Christianity, martyrdom was seen as a holy act. From the very beginning, the Roman elites were often nervous of Christians, especially as they refused to worship at the various imperial shrines. Christianity required its followers to renounce all other gods, and this included emperor worship. As you'd expect, Christians were treated with skepticism and distrust, which soon bubbled over into violence. We've seen how Nero blamed Christians for the fire of Rome, and in later years, emperors like Diocletian would order mass persecution and the destruction of church buildings. But despite the threat of being thrown to lions, many Christians did not renounce their faith, even in the face of certain death. Their martyrdoms were seen as witnesses to their unwavering loyalty, and such acts mirrored the bravery faced by their spiritual leader, Jesus, whose death is the central symbol of the religion. Fortunately, times have now changed, and this is not something that anyone should try to imitate. But it appears that early Christian writers and historians seem to have treated martyrdom as a template for Christian devotion. And before...
Bro, them ugly ass lions, bro. Let it be known. Let it be known. Medieval artists were fucking trash, bro. God damn. This nigga got a beard, bro. Like, shit is trash.
long, almost all the stories of the saints were stories of martyrdoms, and of course, this included the disciples of Jesus. Over time, stories emerged of their bravery in the face of cruelty, all in service of their faith. And that's why, when you look at these paintings, there's a feeling of serenity blended with suffering. The 12 disciples, give or take, would lay the foundations of Christianity, the largest religion in world history. Their stories give us glimpses into the lives of the historical figures they represent, but also into the world of early Christianity and the people behind the New Testament writings. Now we've made it to the end of this video, it's time I come clean with you. I've only revealed half of this story. There are other texts out there, lost books that were allegedly written by the disciples, like the infamous Gospel of Judas. Known as the Gnostics, they represent the earliest heresy in the history of Christianity. To learn what happens next in the story, you'll have to watch here to find out more.
Damn, bro, I just might. I ain't gonna lie. What's next?
Hey!
But with that being said, make sure you like and subscribe. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. Which death or martyr moment that y'all think was the worst? For me, getting skinned alive is fucking crazy, and in second place, getting sawed into, ridiculous. That shit is nuts. The cruelty of humanity knows no bounds. But with that being said, make sure y'all like and subscribe. We can try and get to 1,000 subscribers. If you have anything y'all want me to react to, leave in the comments down below, and I'll catch y'all next one. We out.